Hey guys, this is Neil at Callus Machine Works. I've got my blue gloves on because I want to discuss a exciting new frame we just came up with. This one we put up for pre-order a couple days ago, and it's called the BangGOD. No, it has nothing to do with God in any way or a deity. I want to get that out in the open right now. If you want to find out why we called it the BangGOD, why we gave it this ridiculous name, feel free to go to the link below this video, go look at the webpage, and there is information there about why we named it the BangGOD. So you can go and have a look at that. But I don't really want to talk about the name. What I want to talk about is the machine itself. Now, if you're familiar with our company, you have probably seen or maybe even fly a frame called the Smooth Operator. Here's one right here. This is a Smooth Operator. This happens to be the 6-inch. If you're familiar with this frame, you're probably looking at the BangGOD and going, huh, well that looks like a Smooth Operator. Is that a Smooth Operator? And the answer is yes and no. So the inspiration for the BangGOD is from the Smooth Operator. We took a lot of the design elements, the major design elements of that machine, and they carried over into this one. But we made so many changes, improvements, and things that it's really its own beast. It's its own entity. It's got its own identity. And so we gave it a new name. So the way that this video is going to work is for you guys who are familiar with the Smooth Operator, I'm going to quickly tell you the differences between that frame and this frame. Okay, so then you know the differences. You can make your decision whether you're going to purchase this or not and move on to the next video on YouTube. If you've never heard of our company, or you've maybe heard of our company but you've never purchased one of our machines, I am later on in the video, I'm going to go through all the details about this machine and why you would want to go ahead and purchase this. This is your next Freestyle frame. I am absolutely confident that this is going to be your next Freestyle frame. So just stick with me and let's get started. All right, so big change is the pricing. So on the BangGOD, we've got a cheaper price for you. So compared to the Smooth Operator, this is $20 cheaper. The Smooth Operator came in at $100, and this guy is $80. Biggest changes that we made is with regards to available space. Okay, since we developed the Smooth Operator, that was back about a year and a few months ago, we've been gathering pilot input from that machine. And one of the biggest things that people wanted to see was more space for components, easier to work on. So we've done that. And the way that we did that, let me show you here what we're looking at. So this is the Smooth Operator, and you've got 13 millimeters of height here from the bottom to the top plate to work with. This one, you've got 22 millimeters here. Okay, and additionally, the distances between these interior portions here that connect the arms to the main structure, they have been moved outwards. Okay, so you've got more available space width-wise, and you've got more available space top to bottom. And additionally, you've got more available space front to back. Okay, so that is that's a big deal. And what that allows us to do is do things like this. We can take maybe one of these. I bet you know what this is. Okay, this is the new DJI FPV system. It fits in there without issue. There is plenty of space for this thing. Okay, and obviously the camera fits up here in the front. But yeah, it will fit this DJI system like a glove. All right, another aspect that changed here, and this kind of is in the same realm as having more space to work with, but it has to do with field maintenance. So on the Smooth Operator, the way that you would get to the various components is to remove this bottom plate. So this bottom plate comes off, And then you could also remove this back portion. You'd remove these screws here, and then this plate would come off. Now, that provided you some access, but it's still a little bit difficult to work on in the field. Okay, so if you're a freestyle pilot and you like to go to bandos, or you like to fly aggressively through the woods, or whatever it is, you're going to crash, and you're going to crash a lot. And in doing that, stuff's going to break, okay? And you're going to need to get into the interior of this. So if you need to take the top plate off, it's pretty easy to do. You take these screws out here, whole top plate comes off, you've got access to everything in the interior. Not only that, but because there's so much room here, a lot of times for some repairs, you're not going to have to take anything apart. You can just access it because you've got all of this room to work with. So field maintenance has been made really easy with the BangGOD. All right, now this is an aspect about frames that a lot of people don't put some thought into, but it is really super important, and we like to focus on it. And that is cameras, FPV cameras, what will fit in the frame. All right, so with the Smooth operator, only micro cameras fit. And that's fine, because most people these days are using micro cameras, so that's fine. But for those of you who are using bigger cameras, let's say you like a mini camera, like the DJI FPV system, for instance, or you like a full-size camera, they will fit in here. As you can see on this fully built system, we've got a micro camera, and we're using an adapter. We sell these adapters, but they're readily available pretty much from any distributor. This adapter that will go from full size down to micro. Okay, so obviously you can fit a full-size camera in there. With another adapter, you can fit a mini camera in there, which we'll be making available on our website, or this micro-sized camera. Talk about lithium batteries. So this is another major change on the BangGOD, is the length of battery that you can fit here. Okay, so one of the complaints that we had with the Smooth operator is that there wasn't enough space for long batteries. Some people like to use long batteries. This isn't a very long battery here, but you can see when I put it on here how much more room you've got to fit a long battery. So let's put it on a built system here that's got a camera. This camera, as you can see, this HD camera, is sitting at a high angle. The inclination is pretty high, so you're losing a lot of space here, but if you see, look at this. This is a 1300 milliamp hour 6S battery. I can stick it in here, and look at this. I've still got all this room. So we have lengthened this portion here by quite a bit. Additionally, the distances on the side of the battery have been opened up. If you look here, there's plenty of space between the ends of the props to the sides of the battery. On the Smooth operator, not the 6-inch, this happens to be a 6-inch, but on the 5-inch, some people complained that the ends of the props were a little too close to the battery. So we've improved that and moved these propellers out a bit. All right, so now what I want to do is talk about a major difference between how the HD camera connects up to the front portion of the frame. So how it worked on the Smooth operator, let me grab this 6-inch again, is that it pivots here, okay, the mount pivots here, and then you have a bar that connects from the bottom of the mount over to the top of these two vertical plates. And to change the angle of the camera, what you do is you change this bar out. Pretty simple. It works very well, very effective. Now we've further improved that with this new frame. So you see what we've done here is we've added some slots. We've got slots on either side. And the way that it works is you've got a different type of bar. This bar has got, you can't see them in here, but what we do is we put little press nuts in here. And these screws run into those press nuts. I don't know if you can see them in there, but they grab that, and that allows you to position the camera in this slot at whatever angle that you want it, okay? And so there's only two of these little bars that come with the camera mount. There's this shorter one and this longer one. This shorter one allows from anywhere from 20 degrees up to 35 degrees. And the longer one allows for 35 to 50 degrees. Now, you're probably saying, well, how do I know what angle I'm at? So what we've done is on the bar itself, we've added a little feature here, this little point. And then there's a mating point here on the carbon. And so when these are lined up, let's say for instance you've got this smaller bar, when those points are lined up, you are exactly at 30 degrees. Okay? If you're at the bottom of the slot, you are at 20 degrees. If you're at the top of the slot, you're at 35 degrees. And the same goes for, and this is with the small bars, what I was just referring to. If you've got the tall bar like I've got in here now, the same situation exists. Using that little indicator tells you the angle that you're at. The next thing I want to discuss is arm placement. So as with the smooth operator, you can set up the arms to be staggered. So the rear arms sit at a higher elevation than the front arms. Now, with this machine, the standard setup that you see here where you've got the arms on the same plane, like we've got set up with this machine here, is possible. This is the way most people are probably going to set it up. But if you're adventurous, and if you're also a racer, you know some of the advantages of moving this arm up to the top. Well, with this machine, when you move this arm up to the top, you now have 17 millimeter of difference from this plane, this prop here, to this prop. So that's pretty cool. Now that that is over, you guys who are familiar with the smooth operator now see the differences between that frame and this new frame that we are releasing. So you can go make your decision. For you guys who have never purchased from us, you've never owned our frames, you don't know who we are, I want to discuss some of the finer details of this machine and why this is your next FPV frame. Okay, so let's talk about the camera mount, the HD camera mount. And don't kid, okay, before I get into that, don't kid yourself. The DJI system is amazing, okay, don't get me wrong. But the HD footage that it can create is just not going to be anywhere near the level that a GoPro can create. That's the reality. For one, it films in 4:3 aspect ratio. Good luck getting that to look any good, you know, any kind of a cinematic feel for a YouTube video. Not going to happen. You're going to need to run an HD camera. So these are still relevant, absolutely relevant. And so the reason I mention that is this camera mount is the best in the business, okay? It's not going to get any better than this for camera protection. If you look at what we've done here, we've got double layer on the walls of this camera mount. So when this thing goes smashing into the ground at 80 miles an hour, it's going to be protected. The camera is very, very well protected. We have been using this mount now for, well over a year. I have personally crashed my GoPro 7, I don't know, a few hundred times. I have never once ever damaged this camera. Never. Okay? Also, another nice aspect is you've got this, oops, there we go. You've got this little mount for the ND filter. You can't beat it. It is absolutely the way to go. Okay, so if you're going to be using that DJI system, what you need to use it for is the experience. You use the camera provided with the DJI system to have an amazing flight experience, but you're still going to need a GoPro if you want to have footage that looks good. That's my opinion. Alright, so another fine detail about this machine that makes it different than everything else on the market is the way that this front section connects up to the main structure. So this front section is connecting your HD camera and it's connecting your FPV camera. These are two very, very important parts of the system. You want to protect these as much as possible. Okay, and so the way that this thing works is that this entire portion is connected to the main body by way of a TPU coupling here, or a bulkhead rather. And so it's a combination of a soft mount for the entire front section and a hard mount. So you've got this brace that runs over to the front arms and connects like this. But you also have this portion that is soft mounted. So when you have a hard impact here, what ends up happening is that this portion is allowed to deviate, and some of that crash energy, because it's allowed to deviate and sort of move slightly, is it's dissipated, and you save yourself from breaking other components, and you also save these components from damage in doing that. On that same subject, let's talk about camera protection for the FPV camera. All right, we've been designing frames for a while now. We've gone through a number of different iterations of frame designs, and we have found that as far as camera protection goes for your FPV camera, there simply is no better way to protect it than to have two vertical plates positioned on either side of the camera. Any way that you come at this camera, it's going to have the best chance for protecting it from damage. Okay, that's just the way to go. It's the best scenario for protecting your FPV camera. All right, we're still on the subject of the FPV camera. Super important. The reason I put so much focus into this part of the design is that it is so important, and a lot of designers don't really put much thought into it. And to be honest, some pilots don't really put much thought into it until you get a hold of it and you go, huh, this really sucks, the way that this camera is mounted in. The way that we have done it does not suck. The way that we have done it is the best way to go about it. If you look at this, what we have are long strips, okay? And if you look at most frame designs, most FPV freestyle frame designs, what they do is they've got a single hole, then they have a slot that is rotating around that hole. And what that does is it's a very firm mount for the camera because it positions it by way of 2 screws on either side, so 4 screws total. The reason they're doing that is during crashes when you impact, you want this camera firmly planted and firmly compressed or grabbed by these fasteners so the angle doesn't move around after you've crashed. Well, the problem that mounting the camera up in this way presents is that it locates the camera in one spot. Okay, it's located in this spot. You can't move it up, you can't slide it forward, you can't slide it back, you can't move it down. So it really limits you on the type of cameras and the sizes of cameras that you can fit in those type frames. Okay, well, the way that we have this thing designed is that you can fit anything. You can fit anything on the market in this frame, and the way that it works, the way we've accomplished it, is that we're only using 2 screws. So you can position it forward, aft, you can move it up or down, you can slide it, you can angle it, you can put it wherever you want. But how are we going to keep this thing from moving around when you crash if we've only got 2 screws on a big, heavy, full-size camera? The way that that works is because we have 2 plates here. Oops, my camera's moving around. I'm hitting my camera. We've got 2 plates, and these screws are helping to compress the camera and hold it in place. Additionally, these screws are doing the same thing. They're working to compress this camera and hold it in place. So they're all working in unison to grab this camera. And that's the trick. Another thing I'd like to discuss, this is a finer detail about the frame, is the mounting for your electronics and your stacks here. Okay, you can do a full-size stack in the interior, you can do a micro stack, you can do a separate full stack or a separate micro stack. So you can do 2 stacks, front and rear, if you'd like. Additionally, we've got some slots here in the back where you can connect up FPV antenna or whatever you want to hook up to these little slots. We've also got a couple here in the back. You can see how I've utilized it here on this build right there. I'd also like to mention that we are going to be selling some optional mounts here, a little TPU mount to connect up your FPV antenna. We will also have some optional mounts for connecting up the antenna for the DJI Air unit, and other little accessories and things we'll be coming out with as time permits. Guys, let's talk about fasteners. This is another part about frames that some manufacturers don't put a lot of thought into, and they'll just stick any old screw that they can find in there because they got a good deal at a vendor that they found in China. That's not how we do it at Catalyst Machine Works, okay? We put a lot of thought into very small details, all the way down to the fasteners. The fasteners can play a huge role in how this thing goes together, how all the parts fit together, how well they're compressed together, how it crashes, how it looks. All of that works in unison, and you have to select a good fastener to have a very good frame. Okay, so in the kit, you're going to receive the fastener type that you see here. These are a steel screw. They are a very high alloy, high-end screw. So these are 170,000 PSI strength screw. That is incredibly strong. It is not an average screw at all. If you go look at some of the more standard screws used in some of these frames, you're going to find out they're nowhere near 170,000 PSI. So good luck bending or stripping or breaking these screws that come with this frame. Now, with that said, we are also going to be providing an optional kit of aluminum screws. I happen to have them here on one of our test rigs. You can see we've got these black aluminum screws. They're 70-75 aluminum. We actually use these type screws in a lot of our racing frames. So if you want to save yourself some weight and you're not too worried about maybe every once in a while popping a screw in half and breaking it in half, then you have that option. You can put some lighter weight screws on there. But the standard kit comes with these Superman screws. Okay, now, why did we use a socket head screw and not a button head? You're probably going, why did they do that? Everybody else uses button head. Maybe your voice doesn't sound like that. That's just a bad impersonation of you, isn't it? You probably sound like a reasonable person. Okay, so why did we use these socket head screws like this? Well, it has to do with these two drivers that I've got here. Okay, if you're using a button head screw, you're going to be using a 2mm driver. If you use a socket head screw, you use a 2.5mm driver. This difference in the size of the hex plays a huge part in durability of the screw over time. So over time, as you take and you unscrew this and screw it back and do all of that over time, you're going to start whittling away at the interior of the screw, and you can start stripping out button head screws. Even on steel button head screws, over time you can strip them out. It's very common. That's why we like to use these big, hefty socket head screws like this, is because you are not going to strip this out. No way are you ever going to strip this thing out. And don't worry about this big old screw getting in the way of your battery. You've got plenty of room right here for an absolutely massive battery. Okay, we're also going to be selling a battery pad that anyways is going to lift the battery up over these rear screws. Even if you have some ridiculous long battery like this, it's not going to be a problem. This structure sitting out here in the front, why do we use this? You've probably realized that, well, Catalyst has an arm brace. Why do they do that? Why? Everybody else doesn't use those on a Freestyle frame. What the hell are they doing that for? Anyways, okay, here's the reason, guys. Racing. When you are a racer, you are crashing constantly, all right? you're hitting the gates, you're crashing this thing repeatedly over and over and over again. We have found through our racing development of these racing frames that bracing is extremely effective for saving your arms from crash damage. So the brace is used as kind of like a sacrificial part in a sense, because you can break the brace and keep flying. But if you break the arm, you're screwed. You're grounded. You can't fly anymore. Now, with that said, when you have the brace on there, triangulating the way that the structure is mounted here in this way makes it incredibly resilient to crashes, makes it very, very crash tough. So the way that we've got this triangulated here, it's really, really difficult to break this brace. The entire structure here for mounting the motor becomes really, really, really strong. All right, now, some people are baffled that these carbon arms like this could break in a crash. I want to give you sort of a visual of what's happening in a crash so you can get a better understanding of why it's very, very possible that arms break in a crash in these frames. These, frames are not made of unobtainium and work on different laws of physics. They're just carbon fiber. And so if you're taking a piece of carbon fiber like this and putting it out in 3D space and crashing that machine into the ground at 70, 80 miles an hour, you're hitting an immovable object, and it's possible that it could break. So let me give you an analogy. Let's say that you take that frame and you grab a hammer, okay? And take your motor and your arms and stick it on the concrete floor of your garage, and then grab your hammer and hit with your hammer as hard as you can with all the force that you've got in your body. Bam! Right there. And tell me if you get some cracking in here at the stress point. It's possible you could. It's possible you could. And those are the kind of forces that these things are seeing when they crash. My point is that you've got to do everything in your power to make this structure, this little piece of carbon fiber, survive that crash. And the best way to do it, in our opinion, that we have determined through product testing over years' time, is with a brace. We like braces. We like to use braces. They work very well. Why are we not including a rear brace on the kit? The reason for that is that most impacts, these machines fly in this manner. When you impact, you're going to be projecting a large portion of the crash loading towards the frontal portion of the frame. So most of the time, these rear arms are spared. Okay, so you have a less likelihood you're going to break the rear arms. That's why we don't include the rear brace. But with that said, if you want some extra insurance, like I said earlier in the video, we are going to be selling the optional rear brace. We're coming to a close here on the video. I hope that I haven't bored the crap out of you guys too badly. I want to mention that this is the 5-inch version, obviously. It will fit 5.1-inch props. All right, no problem with 5.1-inch props. We're also going to be selling a 6-inch version of the frame. I'll be producing that product page and getting that live as soon as possible. And then also another very exciting thing is we're going to be selling a 7-inch long-range version of the machine that has been redesigned with long range in mind. I'm also working to get that product page up as quickly as I can so you guys can purchase that. I want to mention that the 5-inch, 6-inch, and 7-inch, they'll all be produced in the same batch at the machinist, so they'll be shipping at the same time. Okay, so you'll see those other two product pages come up shortly. Now, the differences on the long-range version is that obviously we've made it bigger, we've beefed it up some, we have extended this distance here, so the back end is farther out so you can put longer lipos on it. The front section has been moved forward, and in general it's just larger to accommodate more weight, bigger lipos, bigger motors, props, and everything else that goes along with the long-range system. So that sums it up. If you have any questions about this machine, Feel free to email us at info@catalystmachineworks.com or support@catalystmachineworks.com. Thank you for listening to my rambling.